General Studies Paper 2, International Relations. General Studies Paper 2 contains polity, governance, international relations. The international relations part of it carries 50 to 60 marks every year, and this has been consistent for the past 4-5 years. See the topic under discussion. Act East and Look East are two sides of the same coin, depicting phases in evaluation of India's policy towards the Asia-Pacific region. Outline the stages of evolution of the Act East policy and the objectives. The question is very straightforward. So what they are seeking to get from you in this answer is the stages in evolution of the Look East, Act East policy, then the objectives of the Act East policy. Like in other videos, first we have a broad introduction to this particular topic. The Act East policy was influenced by several factors. What are the factors which compelled the Indian government to look east and act east? See, 1991, this policy became important. By 1991, this was the period of reforms introduced by the Manmohan Singh government, in which the state control of the economy gradually gave way to an era of liberalization, privatization, globalization. So this is the beginning of the Act East policy. Another factor which you should remember is economic, strategic, and diplomatic relations. Why did the countries come together? See, the countries which form the focus of the Act East policy, all of them share common concerns with China's economic and military strength. So these countries which came together with India are apprehensive of increasing Chinese power in the region. So this will be the background for the answer. Stages in evolution. So stages in evolution, the first important would be collapse of the Soviet Union. So the collapse of the Soviet Union, see, earlier we had two superpowers, the US and the USSR. And once the Soviet Union collapsed, so it led to a different change in the power structure. Added to this, end of the Cold War. Now, the Act East policy, what did it envisage? Elaborate institutional mechanism. See, when you are having relationships with the countries which are apprehensive of China's economic and military power, all these countries coming together, this will elaborate again in the part of the answer. So what these countries look forward is an institutional mechanism, economic interests leading to building up of infrastructure, and strategic concerns. So these are the core points which weighed in the Act East policy, that is India's relationship with the countries which share a common apprehension against the Chinese influence, Chinese growing in economy and military strength. So Act East policy is accentuated or cemented by economic relations between India and the countries which come under the Act East policy. So the first thing is India and ASEAN. See, India became a member of the ASEAN in 1992. So what we did through ASEAN, we partnered $80 billion annual trade, then Indo-ASEAN trade, Indo-ASEAN trade, focused on development of ports, highways, and food processing. India and Japan. India and Japan, we entered into a deal with Japan for $33.5 billion for infrastructure. Now, Japan is helping us in the Smart Cities project, Digital India, Make in India, Skill India, Smart Cities, automobiles. So, Japan is helping us in developing the infrastructure. Then India and South Korea. The trade with South Korea is expected to grow to $50 billion by 2030. And you have seen the entry of South Korean economic giants into the Indian economy, Hyundai, Samsung, and LG. So the growing economic relationships between India and the countries involved in the Act East. So the countries involved in the Act East policy stretch from ASEAN, Japan, South Korea, and Australia. Now, a key feature of the Act East and Look East policy is the development of the Northeast. See, the Northeast is very poorly developed, very bad infrastructure, and it is wrecked with insurgency and left-wing extremism. So government wants to develop the Northeast as a gateway to Southeast Asia. Japan is also in favor of the developing the Northeast. In 2017, the India-Japan Act East Forum was inaugurated. So what is this India-Japan Act East Forum? What is it concentrating on? First, connectivity within the Northeast and connectivity to Southeast Asia. That is the most important thing. So in connectivity, everything will come: infrastructure, roads, railways, etc. Then disaster management. How Japan is going to help India in the problem of disaster management. Then environment, tourism, citizen connect. So these are the 4 units which the Indo-Japan Act East Forum envisages. That is connectivity, disaster management, environment, and tourism. So India's development of the Northeast will further not only development in the Northeast, but will also open the gateway to Southeast Asia. India also believes in developing the sea corridors connecting India and South and Southeast Asia. So maritime trade, development of maritime trade is another important feature of the Act East policy. See, the originally Act East was including only Japan, South Korea, Australia. Now it is stretching to Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, covering the BIMSTEC also. So the Act East envisages continuous growth in the number of countries which are apprehensive about Chinese economic power, Chinese military power. See, the government recently introduced a policy called Sagar. By Sagar, I mean security and growth for all in the region. Now, the Act East policy has adopted the principle of Sagar. What is Sagar? Freedom of navigation. Now, especially with the rise of China, now what the Indian government is stressing for is respect for territorial integrity, sovereignty, freedom of navigation, and unimpeded commerce, maritime security. So I will repeat this again. Sagar. Security and growth for all in the region. What the government wants to achieve in the Act East policy is preserving the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the nations which come in the Act East policy, freedom of navigation, unimpeded commerce, maritime security. These are the key objects of Sagar. Then this Act East policy is mainly looking at regional cooperation, linking Northeast with ASEAN, linking Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific and South Korea's new Southern policy. So it is integration of all these aspects, and basically the Act East, Look East policy aims at strengthening territorial integrity of the countries involved, strengthening cooperation, there is regional cooperation among all the countries which come in the area, in this particular region. So basically, the Act East policy involves checking, or you can say it is a reaction to Chinese increasing presence, Chinese increasing economic growth, and its military strength. These factors have influenced the countries in the Act East policy to forge a common regional platform. This common regional platform has helped us in not only building infrastructure but also growing economic relations. Like we mentioned, the strong relationships between India and ASEAN, how the ASEAN is helping us in development of ports, highways, food processing. Then Japan, relationships with Japan, how Japan is helping us with the smart cities, digital India, make in India, then skill India. Then South Korea, we have got a target of $50 billion by 2030. So trade with South Korea also is going to increase. Then we spoke of the Indo-Japan Act East Forum, focusing on the four key aspects of connectivity, like I told you, developing Northeast as a gateway to Southeast Asia, disaster management, environment, tourism, and ultimately the Act East policy, which became popular after the fall of the Soviet Union and after 1991 and after the growth of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, is basically looking at regional cooperation among the countries in the region. Apart from regional cooperation, the main thrust of the Act East, Look East policy is strengthening the territorial integrity of the nations involved, maritime security, freedom of navigation, and promoting unimpeded commerce with the countries which come in the Act East policy.